Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We're going to give everyone a minute or so to join in, and then we will go ahead and get started. So just as we're getting started, I do want to make a note. There's an update to this. We will have closed captions available. They are going to be in the chat. So please do look at the chat information in order to access the closed captioning for today's webinar. If you have any questions, we're going to ask that you place them in the Q&A section. And if you would really like to hear that question asked, please use the upvoting feature in the Q&A feature in order to let us know which are the highest priority questions. We have the opportunity to start peer-to-peer conversations as well in the chat. And just to let you know, we are recording today's session. It'll be available on EIC's YouTube channel after the webinar. And you are earning CEs towards your CMP or your CMP-HC certification, as well as a CAE certification. The CMP ones will be posted within 1 week of today's webinar, and we hope you'll enjoy today's session. So I have the great pleasure of introducing our panel members. First, we have Megan Green. She is with Global Events at SAP, and she's also the chair of EIC's Sustainability and Social Impact Committee. Also joining us today is Glenn Hansen. He's the Executive Strategic Advisor with BPA I Comply Worldwide, and he serves as the auditor that looks after the EIC Sustainable Event Standards. My fellow CMP fellow, Derek Johnson, thank you for being here today, Director of Meetings at Virtual Inc., and also a member of EIC's Equity Task Force, and Gail Murphy, CEO at Global Green Events, and member of our Sustainability and Social Impact Committee. I'm Mariella McElraith. I will be serving as our moderator for today, and I also serve as the Executive Consultant for EIC's Center for Sustainability and Social Impact. So with that in mind, we have a few announcements or a few questions, not announcements, but questions for you. So we're going to go ahead and start with some polls. One of the things that we really like to do is to really get to know all of you so that as we're doing our presentation, we can really tailor it to your specific needs. So I'm going to ask that we bring up our first poll for today, and that should be coming up shortly. Well, I think this is an interesting question. It's not the one that I was expecting, but it's going to be a good one for us to have information on. So it'd be nice to know how many of you have been traveling since March, and if it was for business or for leisure or for both. All right, let's go ahead and close that poll. And let's see, how are things? We can get the results from that. And I see, oh, look at all these places. So it looks like there's definitely lots of travel that's been happening since March. It's good to see that that rebound is taking place. And really good to see that, it's both business and pleasure that people are enjoying as they're doing this. So why don't we go ahead and get started with our first question. And our first question is for Megan. So Megan, you've been first. Thank you very much for chairing the committee. It's wonderful to have your leadership. And I know how much all of the committee members have appreciated the opportunity to collaborate with you. So I wanted just to start off by understanding what the committee has been up to in the last year, how you're really dedicated to supporting this industry transformation, building ambition, and building greater collaboration.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mariella. And hi, everybody. Greetings from a very dark and dreary, rainy morning in Atlanta, Georgia. It is pounding rain out there. I'm sitting here in my living room trying to get some light and sitting in front of my Christmas tree, which is hopefully shedding a, dewy, youthful glow upon my complexion, better than any ring light, right? But anyway, thank you so much. Again, as Mariella mentioned, my name is Megan Green. I'm part of the global events team at the technology company SAP. And I'm beyond honored and thrilled to be leading the EIC Sustainability and Social Impact Committee this year. Guys, this is such an incredible, passionate, capable, focused group of professionals who share the spirit and resolve needed to move our industry forward. And the good news is we want to bring all of you along with us for the ride. And that's what we're going to talk through on this call. So excited to explain all the cool stuff that we've launched this year and what you can do within your own organization to get involved. So the first thing that I want to talk about is just this committee that I've inherited. I joined 2 years ago and sat under the tutelage of the incredible Yalmaz Siddiqui. I don't know if any of you know him, just an incredible leader who really brought us to the place that we are right now in terms of all of these incredible materials, all of this incredible learning that we have to share with you. He previously ran sustainability for MGM Resorts and recently assumed a similar position for Disney. But for me personally, as an event organizer, it was really interesting to sit under him and understand everything that he was seeing from more of a supplier perspective, which is one of the great things about the committee, and everything that we do and everything that we consider is from both of those lenses, right? Both from an organizer and a supplier point of view. So I hope that as we walk through all of the materials that we have, you'll see that we tried to wear both of those hats with everything that we created. Right, so the first thing I want to focus on is education. We have learning opportunities, as you know, through EIC that you can undertake as an individual or as an organization. In April of this year, we announced our first SEPC certification. It's Sustainable Event Professional Certificate. And in the first group that we launched, there were 126 bold, brave people who went through the training with us, earned their certification. It's had great momentum since then. We're seeing lots of folks successfully being certified. And I encourage you all as individuals or as teams or as an entire organization to check it out and really try it. I personally went through the training myself. I found it to be really interactive, easy to follow, and just a really great opportunity to upskill yourself personally, and then take the learning coming out of that course to share with the rest of your team and impart change for your organization. So definitely check out the SEPC. I think the team is putting the link in the chat so you can get more details about that. The second piece of educational material we rolled out this year is a new event standards. And I'm sure many of you remember the previous event standards that we've had for several years. We kind of pulled that apart and just tried to make it more user-friendly, more useful, had a lot of changes that significantly improved the experience. A notable addition to the event standards that we added this year is a foundation level certification. This is really for organizations who have established sustainability and social impact plans in place and just want to review your existing policies and plans, get help identifying any gaps you may have, and then at the end of the process, you are issued an entry level certificate. So if we look at the event standards overall as a means of providing a strong focus on guidance and metrics wherever you are in your sustainability journey, the foundation program really gives you a good place to start. If you're just feeling a little overwhelmed, not sure where to start, have good intentions of moving forward with your organization, but just need a kickstart to kind of get a sense of where you are and where you need to go. And maybe Mariella, if you could jump in and just explain specifically what the process is for participating in the foundation certification.
Absolutely. So we had the opportunity to test drive the foundations with an initial cohort in September and October of this year. And what we found from that experience of running a class. Basically, every 2 weeks, the group got together and went through the elements of the foundation, was that really people needed some additional customized individual support. So what we're doing now is we've changed the approach for the foundations. Upon registration, you'll have an initial call that will be set up with a subject matter expert, and we'll review all of the things that are going to be needed in order for you to work on your foundation level elements. So there's going to be 4 specific things that you're going to work on. One is going to be a sustainability and social impact policy, a code of conduct or an ethics policy, a statement on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and then a sustainability and social impact plan, because we want to make sure that that policy actually has actions that follow through. So we help you with lots of guidance and templates and examples from within our industry to help you do that. So after that first initial call, you're given a workbook with all those examples and you work on it independently. And then when you're ready, you submit those for review. We schedule a second call where we go through any gaps that there may be and help you to make sure that you're able to cross that finish line. The whole idea around the foundations is to provide all the guidance you need to get started. We recognize that it can be a little daunting sometimes to get started on this journey. So we want to make sure that everyone gets off on a really good start. So we're also available to answer questions in between those calls. So if you're getting stuck, just send an email off to sustainability@eventscouncil.org. We'll have that email address at the end. And we'll make sure that any questions that you might have are answered. Back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Mariella. I think this is such a game changer, just recognizing the need for, an initial starting point before you start judging where you are really on this scale of bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. And honestly, like a lot of times you might be pleasantly surprised, right? You go through the foundations and you realize, hey, we have things in place that maybe we just haven't been measuring and didn't know that, that we actually are already qualifying somewhere along this scale and have a clear sense of where you need to go. So definitely check that out as well. Okay, so that covers off on education, and the next rollout that we announced this year, for those of you who were at IMAX America, you might have been with us when we announced the equity benchmarking study. And Derek Johnson, who is one of our panelists, will dive into this deeper once we get to his remarks, but it's essentially the first major step in the overall EIC equity acceleration plan. And it's meant to create more diverse environments, develop career pathways and representations in leadership and supply chain, to support the entire industry. So more from Derek about this, which is really exciting place to start as we continue on that equity acceleration plan. And then lastly, the final announcement that we'll explain with this call is around the option for third-party auditing services. And Glenn Hansen will dive into this when you hear from him. But essentially, we've put into place some auditing services for events and suppliers if you're interested in achieving the standards, right? So additional fees apply for these services, but the idea is that once you've put in all the work into the event standards, you have the option for third-party review to objectively advise you of any gaps in your reporting, and then also help you guide to find any necessary materials you have to put into place to achieve compliance and ultimately get certified. So I think this really helps step outside of your own research, have somebody objective, look over what you've done, tell you if there's any missing pieces, and give you some guidance about what you need to do to get across the finish line. So lots of exciting stuff this year. I hope that you're excited too, and will let us know how we can support you. And I'll kick it over to the team to dive a little deeper into some of these specific topics. Mariella.
Thank you so much, Megan, and to the whole Sustainability and Social Impact Committee. You talked a little bit about, the opportunity to work with Yilmaz, and one of the things that I have really come to appreciate about this group is just how how varied all of the experiences are amongst the group. So, when questions have come up about the standards, and one of the things that is good for everyone here to know as well is that if questions do come up about how to assess things, the questions go back to the Sustainability and Social Impact Committee for discussion, so that we can really have the benefit of the expertise of organizers, suppliers. We have an airline representative. All of this brain trust that comes together to help resolve questions that might come up has been incredibly valuable for being able to develop the standards. So, but my next question is for Derek. So Derek, thank you so much for being here today. And just want to say, in addition to your role on the EIC's Equity Task Force, you also chair the LGBT Meeting Professionals Association and founded the Organization for Social Impact. What a fantastic name right there. I just, that it really conveys something so special. So I really like that. Can you, so switching to the question now, can you tell us what you're observing today with respect to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the event sector? And, how can we drive this forward faster? Because it seems like we talk about this a lot, and how do we get more traction? How do we make things change faster?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much, Mariella and EIC, for inviting me to be here. It's an honor, especially to talk about something so important to each of us on an individual basis and also a professional level. As Mariella noted, at the very end of last year, I founded the Organization for Social Impact. Impact is with an E versus an I, because it's all about helping organizations impact with empathy as the focal point, and really coming in and observing whether your organization is a fit for your people. And as we continue to look through the lens of an organization and evolve the spaces, it's all about ensuring that that we're seeing our community through different lenses, and we're pushing our team members, we're pushing our audiences, our boards, all levels of stakeholders in the organization to really take that approach, which is very, very different from the way that we may have adapted in the past. Organizations are shaped by the minds, values, and hearts of people. And ultimately, the people are the pieces that make us relevant, that continue to drive the elements of change and of authenticity and sustainable adjustments based off of societal changes and adjustments in our spaces. So I think when we really consider DEIA, and I love the fact that the A is now a very big focal point, it's really all about ensuring that it's in all sectors of what we do. And I had the opportunity to participate in the Sustainable Event Professional Certificate Program when it first started. And ultimately, I can tell you that it really changed my life. That it opened my eyes to not just the areas of sustainability, but those social impact changes, which, as you can very well see, I named an organization after one of the modules, but it really helped transform my interpretation, my understanding of kind of the business value of sustainability, and also the various and the responsibilities that we have, not just on a professional level, but also in the spaces as people working in a space that ultimately drives social and economic transformation within communities. So when I think, not to just make a plug for the SEPC, but it really was life-changing for me. And And so when I look at the various elements of that program and of what it has to offer for both organizations and suppliers, I think the ways that we accelerate these opportunities is by always keeping inclusivity as a focal point. And we look at inclusivity from the lens of the individual. When we approach any space, we normally think of, okay, how can we effectively move in a quick and easy way? But sometimes we leave people behind. There are walls that we've built in this space that have restricted individuals from bringing their full authentic selves into spaces and situations and experiences. And we are now in a time where those walls must be broken down to allow for everyone to participate in a way that is meaningful to them, not restricting them from actively sharing, actively learning, or actively being able to communicate or effectively communicate with others in any area. So I think when we walk through kind of this idea of inclusivity and acceptance within the event space, we talk about multiple areas within maybe the marketing, within registration, within the feedback, but ultimately it lies within the strategy. And the strategy has to come first and foremost in any area that we really have a focus for the DEIA. And within that strategy has to be a blueprint for acceptance, a blueprint to really be able to articulate how you're addressing the needs of all individuals. And yes, we're not going to be able to facilitate a world where we're addressing every single piece of the puzzle, but we can continue to strive for that. My grandfather once told me, Mariella, that you shoot for the moon and you'll land on a star. And I think that's that mindset is what we have to have. It's not always going to be perfect, and it's not always going to reach every single person. And we're not going to do everything 100%. That really focuses on all areas of DEIA, but we can strive for it. And I think as a community, we have to rally around that, continue our learning, continue benchmarking, continue planning and executing with high focus, and then monitoring that progress along the way so that we can continue to strive higher and get better at it. And all of those pieces that I just mentioned really fall within the equity acceleration plan that EIC has really outlined. And being a part of that group is been just an amazing opportunity for me. And for those of you who don't really know the vision of that group, it's really to help challenge and change the focus of racism and discrimination within the global events industry. And it's all about creating career pathways, representation, leadership, supply chain areas. But as we think about organizations, all those same principles apply. All those same areas are part of every organization. And I think as we continue to engage and uplift communities, society ultimately rises to that answer also.
That's fantastic, Derek. I love what your grandfather told you. I'm going to remember that as well. And I also really liked your reference to people being able to, I think you said to participate as their full authentic selves. And to me, that's so essential because, the purpose of bringing people together face to face is to have that opportunity to interact. And so if people aren't able to be their full authentic selves, then we're really missing an opportunity for us to achieve our event goals. So that's really great insights. Thank you so much for that. So I want to switch over to Gail next. So Gail, what are you seeing as some of the shifts or the trends with respect to sustainability and social impact?
Yeah, so across the board, I think there's been a larger push to do with strategy and policy. There's really a focus on planning. Now people and organizations, whether they're individual event producers or they're working as a collective, are really looking to create a strategic action that actually has a plan to do these actionable changes. Before, it was just kind of an idea. Sustainability was a hot topic, but there was a less of an actualization required by the organizations. And so what I'm noticing as a big shift now is lots of people are now asking for strategy support, for policy support, for help, because they know that carbon footprinting is becoming very prevalent in terms of the importance of it. So this is happening internationally, especially at the larger entity level. So not just at DMC level or organizer level, but also on national side as well. So this has been quite a nice turn of events, let's say. So it's not now me harping on about sustainability, it's about people really asking for it. And I think the frameworks like the standards, where it really guides people from A to Z on how to create strategy, how to create all these different policies that are really supportive, how to create the frameworks and how to really engage, you know, all of the different pieces of sustainability is super helpful for us at this time, especially even just working with clients that I work with. It's really imperative to have these kinds of frameworks. There's also been a lot of push on kind of ESG reporting and carbon emission reporting. The Carbon Disclosure Project has seen an increase of 233% in applicants since 2015, which is a huge amount. The same with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol as well. All of these global reporting frameworks are now being pushed for. Over here in the EU, we even have the CSR directorate that's coming in, which mandates companies. I mean, this stuff is, you know, a no-brainer, really and truly, for larger organizations in terms of integrated reporting. But what's happening is that the companies, the clients, the buyers are being now mandatory reported on. And so that's filtering down into their events. It's filtering down into the supply chain that they choose to work with, the venues they choose to work with, the locations that they want to go to, where they create their touch points with their stakeholders in terms of events, exhibitions, and all these other kinds of interactive touch points, because that's in essence what we're dealing with ourselves, is these beautiful face-to-face experiences where we get to innovate these connections much more. One thing that I found interesting, I read through the Finding the Future report, epic report. If you guys have not read the Finding the Future report, I think hopefully someone was going to post this in the chat. It's really worth a read. It really digs into the US and North America in specifics to do with the exhibitions, the trends that are there, the impacts that are being created, and also some cool ideas about different solutions or different ways to kind of maximize your impact in a positive way and minimize your impacts in other areas. So this is really, these reports give tangible data about really where the impacts are in the events industry. And I think that this is one thing that we can really focus on in terms of data sharing and data collection, so we can see where we need to make changes and where we don't. Because a bit like what Derek was saying, and also Mariella, you kind of touched on it, is this authentic meeting of people. So I think what we saw during COVID-19 was really this barren landscape of human connection and human knowledge sharing and innovation and all of this beautiful stuff that comes when people come together, not to mention the wonderful empathetic element that Derek's talking about, where we come together and we co-create things and we collaborate. So it's not about not doing that. It's about how do we do that in the best, most responsible way that we can, where we maximize what we're doing in that space without guilt, and we work on processing all the things that we know that we're doing, right? So we know that we're doing things that are creating environmental harm. So how do we reduce those? How do we use better suppliers? How do we offset where we need to? And how do we really be responsible about our forward planning in terms of strategy and planning, whether it's just an individual event or organizationally? And now there's so many materials with the new single-use plastic ban. There's so many different materials on every level that you can choose that are different in terms of impacts, as well as infrastructure, location, venue, energy sourcing. So many things out here now with the innovation. So just want to say good luck out there, guys. It's all possible. The solutions are possible. So thank you so much, Mariella, for the opportunity to be here. It's really a gift.
And I just found my unmute button. So thank you very much, Gail, for your really great insights. And, you know, I always love how you always stay so on top of regulations and trends. And so I really appreciate you sharing those insights with us. You know, I think that I remember, you know, one of my old profs used to talk about numbers and narrative. We always need to, you know, tell a good story, but have the numbers to back it up. So I appreciate you referencing the Finding the Future report. And Marissa, thank you for posting that link in there. It's also posted on the IAE website, so you can access it in both of those spots. So thank you very much, Gail, for that. Really great insights. So my next question is over to Glenn. So Glenn, Megan started off introducing the sustainable event standards for us, part of the EIC sustainability journey. So can you tell us a little bit about, you know, what is involved with the standards, how people can go about achieving them, and all those good things?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mariella, for having me join you today. For those of you who are not aware, there was a refresh in the sustainable event standards that effectively happened the end of June. So starting July 1st, the new standard's been out. And unlike in the past, it has now 8 different individual standards, one for the event organizer. And that can apply to the company, but really it's about the event itself. And if you want your event to be certified as being a sustainable event, that opportunity now exists. But then there are 7 other standards that really address the supply side. And they include the accommodations or the hotels, your AV and production and staging companies, the destination, you know, the DMO and the visit, whatever major metropolitan area that is, your exhibition services, the contractors, your food and beverage company, the venue, and then integrated property. And that's also somewhat of a new one. That's a combination of accommodations and usually food and beverage when they are both managed by one overall system. But it could possibly be accommodations in food and beverage if the event is being held at a hotel and not otherwise at a major venue. But with the EIC, we would work with you to establish if in fact there is one overall management system that you could take advantage of the integrated property aspect. And I would say it's really, this new standard is a framework for collaboration. It isn't a pass-fail. And unlike a event sustainable management system, this is more about, you know what to do and are you actually doing it? So you'd have an independent third party, which is us, come in to check that in fact you are in compliance with the standard. And you have some options. It's a point-based system. And to achieve the minimum level, which is bronze, you would have to be awarded 50% of the points. Your next category up is silver, which is at a 65% of the points, 80% for gold, and 90 for platinum. And the total points by different elements of the supply chain vary. So audiovisual, for example, have fewer criterion in the standard and therefore fewer points that they have to achieve. But in addition to those, the EIC has added an opportunity for exemplary performance bonus points and for innovation bonus points. Exemplary performance would be where you're either as an event organizer or on the supply side, where you have overachieved on a particular criterion within the standard. And bonus points can be awarded for that. Separately, there's one for innovation. So if you're doing something innovative that has not been done before or not done by many before, you have an opportunity to apply to the EIC and say, this is something that we're doing. if we went back 5 or 6 years ago, I would say rooftop gardens and beehives were big things at venues. Today, that might not be seen to be innovative anymore, but we are interested in collaborating and developing these innovative ideas and then sharing them within the industry so that others can learn and move and grow on from that. Within, or I should say, after considering the various categories within the standard itself, we have subcategorized, if you will. There are standards for organizational management, and that largely would address your sustainable policy, your sustainability plan, and some of the other overall organizational requirements. But there are sections for marketing, communications, and engagement, climate action, water management, your circularity on the material side, supply chain management, the DEI, and accessibility. Both of those have certainly had a refresh since the previous standard back then when it was the Green Meetings Industry Council, and then social impact. So what I would encourage you to do, if you're curious, is to go to the EIC website into the sustainability section, and there is a flip book for the standards. You'll register for that. And there is a tab for all suppliers. It's really the kitchen sink there, but you can find the tab that's relative to either if you're an organizer or a particular type of a supplier, and go through that flip book and take a look at what the different criteria are, the points that you can gain, and do your own self-assessment, your own gap analysis. Where is your organization, event or on the supply side, vis-a-vis those standards? And if you're at near 50% of the points, then it's certainly an encouraging sign, and you should move forward with certification. If you're just shy of the 50%, we should have a conversation about how can you get over that hurdle so that you can now at least attain a bronze level of certification, and then if not, silver, gold, and platinum. I would comment that it's a 3-year business cycle, meaning in the first year you have full certification, but in the second and the third year, similar to what happens in many other certification protocols like the ISO, you have 2 years of surveillance audits. And there it's about half of the work that you would find in a full certification. What we're interested in seeing in a surveillance audit is that there's been continuous improvement. And in the certification, the full certification, it's a hand-holding situation. I said earlier, it's not a pass-fail. We want as many suppliers and organizers to participate in the standard and progress through from bronze all the way on up to platinum. And so in that process, as we review the documentation you provide, we use, as I refer to it, as a traffic light system, green, yellow, and red. Green, everything's fine, and you get the point. Yellow, there's a minor nonconformity that we need to discuss. It may be there's additional documentation that we can look at to award that point, or it may be that it's going to stay a minor nonconformity for this particular year. And then we have the red light, which is, let's say, for example, you were pursuing bronze, you only need 50% of the points. Well, the other 50% might have been either not applicable or you're not wishing to file for those. And so we would mark those as red, meaning we have not looked at any documentation yet. Or you did have documentation and we found it to be a major nonconformity. And then there's another great conversation about, well, how do we change that from a major nonconformity down to something along the lines of compliance? And so that you'll see us working with you through this traffic light system in a certification year, such that when we do the surveillance audit, there are some minimum requirements the EIC will ask us to check. One example would be your sustainable policy. It has to be refreshed every 12 months, and it has to have executive management support. So we would have seen in the certification that it had, say, an effective date of July 1st of 22, and it was signed off by the C-suite of the organization. When we come back in the surveillance audit, we're going to check to see, have you updated that policy since July of 22? If there are no changes, fine, just simply change the effective date. But if there have been changes, we're interested in knowing what are those changes and how you're going about implementing those. So there are some mandatories that we have to look at in the surveillance audit, but we're also going to go back and look at what were the yellow lights and what were the red lights in the previous full certification and say, have you made any improvements on those? Particularly if you were at bronze and now you wish to move on to silver, there will be additional criteria that we will need to check to award those points to now get you to 65%, so that you can attain your silver standing. And so, as I say, it's a collaboration. We're here to help, not pass fail. Yes, it is a point-based system, but you can get exemplary performance points, and you can get points for innovation to help you move along this process. And it's a continual improvement process over a 3-year span. And then in year 4, we start all over again with a full certification and progress our way through. So as I say, given your level of interest, visit the EIC site, look at the flip book. When you decide to proceed with certification, we will give you that book in an Excel format, so it's downloadable and usable. At the moment, the flip book is visual, so you can see and assess yourself what's there. And first steps would be to reach out to us or Mariella to say there's a level of interest. We need to introduce you to the foundations level course, and then to share that workbook with you so that you can start your journey.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn. And thank you for like all the support that you provide. You know, one of the things that I've really come to appreciate about your team is just the willingness to answer questions. You know, we've really done our best to put as much guidance and assessment information into the standards themselves, but inevitably there are some questions or some things that require a little bit of interpretation. So I really appreciate that extra time that you spend with the organizations going through the certification, and that approach of really, you know, being that helping hand to do this. You know, the reality is that we all need to be moving faster towards more sustainable and socially impactful practices in our sector, and having that sort of coach approach is really great. So thank you for that.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
So Megan, let's have you switch hats for a second and you know, really focus on your role as a corporate organizer. So what are some of the things that you're experiencing in terms of priorities and direction that you're being given regarding sustainability?
Yeah, you know, I think obviously for all of us, this is such a challenging but fascinating, interesting time to be in the events industry, right? We're being asked to upskill ourselves in ways we never had before. We're being asked to take on tasks. It's a lot of guesswork. What do our customers want? What do our attendees want? Do they want to be in person? Do they want to stay on their couch? I personally find it really exciting, just in the sense that everything is laid on the table in events right now, at least from my perspective. And you know, the idea of nothing being sacred, like within our organization, we're in a moment where we are willing to scrutinize and reconsider just about anything, where for years and years and years we were just congratulating ourselves on our own expertise, right? Like now everything has changed. So I think, you know, it's an interesting time for suppliers. If you've been saying for a long time, well, you know, we'll never be able to talk organizers out of XYZ, that's just what they want to do. Like, this is an appropriate time to challenge your event organizers or bring suggestions to the table, right? I think that we have a much more collaborative moment with our vendors and suppliers right now. We're looking for their expertise. We're wanting to speak, as Gail mentioned, at a very strategic level. We're recognizing, you know, by the time our plans are in place and we're actually executing an event, it's arguably too late to make those really fundamental decisions and changes based on what we're seeing right now. So I think overall, it's a time right now to break the chain of legacy habits, legacy systems that we've been afraid to rock the boat when we're executing an event. We've been afraid that our attendees will, you know, be up in arms if we change something. It feels like we have a moment and kind of permission from our customers to try new things. So I think I would just encourage everybody on the call to take advantage of that opportunity right now, even though it feels uncomfortable. And, you know, like Derek mentioned, like give yourself the grace to try things and make mistakes. Not everything is going to work. We've looked at the last, I would say, 2.5 years worth of events at SAP that we've executed. And sometimes we've just guessed wrong, and sometimes we've been right on the money, right? I would say we've missed registration KPIs that we just thought people were wanting one thing, and it turned out they wanted another. Like, our virtual registration was far higher than we thought it was going to be, and our in-person registration was far lower than it was going to be. So taking that in stride and taking it as a moment to say, I find this fascinating instead of frustrating, I think is the name of the game for organizers right now.
Thank you. And I'm going to keep that in mind, that thinking of things as being fascinating instead of frustrating. That's really good advice. Derek, what about in terms of the association sector? What are you seeing happening there?
Yeah, I think Megan hit the nail right on the head with the idea of challenging the status quo, in unlearning everything that we have held as fact, and the idea that we knew the rotation, we knew when people would register for our events, and the expectation that certain things would happen accordingly. But now we know that things don't, that the world is different, that people act differently. And so I think the biggest trend that I'm seeing is being able to step back and reevaluate, to be open to the idea of variance and different. When we look at the past few years, the pandemic really opened all of the industry up to this idea that we can learn and connect in different ways, i.e., we don't have to always facilitate learning in person. It can be done in a digital way. And by addressing that notion, we've addressed some of the concerns that existed, that those walls that were built, keeping people from attending, whether it be accessibility or disability related. We have opened kind of those walls and windows to allow for participation, active participation in the experiences that we're planning. And so I think to keep retaining that value and retaining those individuals, we have to always approach all aspects of the planning process with that mindset of lifting those walls and borders that exist, and challenging our beliefs of what should be, and ensuring that we are opening the doors for all people. Some examples of things that we're doing at Virtual, it starts in multiple areas, whether it be from registration, and I know Megan mentioned the idea of data, quantifying this data and ensuring that we're not just relying on past history, because past history is in the past. Every day is different. And so quantifying data and ensuring that we're comparing it based off of the trends that we're seeing today is very important to our team. And ensuring that we have a strategy and goals that relate to that quantified data is also very important. Identifying personas to really help streamline that data in a way that is meaningful to the various audiences and organizations that we serve. And that really falls under the almost event design umbrella, in preparing materials for different languages, ensuring that when we select dates, that they're not conflicting, not just with our US-centric holidays, but the global holidays that exist in the space, because we know that our organizations are no longer domestic based, that by our fingertips, we can reach any part of the world. And that participation may not just be here in the US, it may be across all channels. And by ensuring that dates specifically don't restrict individuals from participating is another way of making events more accessible. Through the event execution umbrella, just ensuring that, again, there are various setups for the various learning styles, whether that be in person or, with the chair setups or a hybrid model, allowing for all participants to actively provide questions to the presenters in a digital format so that everyone's at the same level, i.e. if I'm in the room, I can't just raise my hand. I can submit my question digitally, and so can the people at home. So everyone's on an equal playing field so that we're not really providing, again, restrictions, but we're putting everyone at an equal playing field, whether they're in person or virtual. Feedback is another area that we're really focused on, and ensuring that that is noted in various formats, that we're talking to our vendors, and we're really addressing those concerns at the forefront during the RFP process and on the back end through the measurement process. We want to understand what is our destinations or our venues' sustainability and social impact strategies before we even decide to sign the contracts. And then we're going back and measuring the areas that were important to us within the sustainability areas and chains, and quantifying that information to show not just our team, but our participants, the footprint that we've left in that destination based off of the strategy that we entered with. So those are all areas in which that we have that we're evaluating what we're doing with sustainability and social impact, but that applies not just to the association space, but to anyone in the event area. And I think, again, as long as we're challenging our beliefs from the past and looking at things with a new lens, an empathetic lens, that's where transformation truly happens.
Thank you, Derek. And I really like how you talked about collecting feedback, but not just collecting it, but using it and applying that lens of empathy to the feedback that you're receiving, I think is a really a wonderful approach. So thank you for sharing your insights on that. My next question is for Gail. And Gail, let's just take a little moment to talk about greenwashing for a second. Can you tell us a little bit about what it means and what are some ways that people can avoid it?
Sure. Greenwashing is actually one of my favorite topics, just because I used to be quite a strong anti-greenwasher. I was like really against organizations that would talk about things that I felt were greenwashing. So let me just tell you what the definition of greenwashing is. I looked this up. It's the process of conveying a false impression or misleading information about how a company's products or services are environmentally sound. So this all sounds very kind of deceiving, sort of like a negative energy, you know, it's like not being transparent about what you're sharing. And so I came at this this viewpoint, I suppose, as an activist when I was younger. And once I started to really dig into what sustainability meant, how it would be implemented in organizations and in companies, meeting big organizations that were really wanting to make substantial shifts towards sustainability and how to do that, and, you know, meeting them at conferences where they were learning all these different things. And I realized actually what greenwashing often is them starting out. So it's them starting to do something that they can do, given their entire business model. It's something that they can do within their budget, within their workforce, within their timeline, that starts the ball rolling. And then it seems to just snowball exponentially internally in terms of other people get motivated about climate change or the ESG, or they start to see the positive impacts that these things have internally and also externally for their stakeholders, and people start running with it. So this was a really big shift for me in terms of greenwashing. So I just wanted to send a lot of, like Derek says, empathy out there for organizations that might be feeling overwhelmed by greenwashing. Lots of clients that work for me feel terrified about doing something small in case they get a lot of ramifications from the media about it. So what I would say is to really encourage you guys just to start from where you're going. Start from taking that step by step down the process. there's two principles of sustainability that I like to quote a lot. One is transparency, and the other one is integrity. And for me, if you're coming from a space of transparency and integrity, you're being really integral in what you're saying you're doing, you're being really transparent about what you're not doing, that's okay. It's okay that we're doing that. What I like to get people to understand is companies, as we're kind of touching on in this webinar, companies are groups of humans doing the best they can. So often we've already created this huge structure that's moving forward, right? So how do we start to shift that into a more sustainable business model, a more sustainable strategy? We start to plan, we start to take small actions, they get bigger, they start to branch off, and all of a sudden you're a whole different being, you're a whole different organization. So these things are about, be bold in the face of greenwashing. Don't care about what other people have got to say. Be transparent about what you're not doing and be transparent about what you are doing. And be really in your integrity in terms of where you want to get to. You can publish your strategic plan. You can talk about the policies that you're doing. You can speak about the actions that you're doing, by all means, but also share the things where you would like some support, build collaborations, build partnerships, start to work with other certified venues, suppliers, service providers, work with people that are already doing a great job in these areas and are established with a good reputation. So you know that when you're collaborating with those people, you're stronger in your foundations that you're creating. So this is also relevant for suppliers. So suppliers, start looking at where you're not being transparent or integral. Look at the materials that you're using. Look at the people that you're working with. Find out other suppliers that have also found cool solutions for things that you know are not the best in what you're providing. Because what's going to happen is, as we're moving down this kind of food chain of the event sector, right, is that we've got the buyers and the clients, and then we have the organizers and the producers, we have the venues, we have the locations, the accommodation, we have the transportation, we have all of the supply chain. We're all asked to step up in this space. So let's work together, share ideas, share resources, share different ways that we can network, so we all move as a collective. And to rely on each other in terms of calling us accountable and being transparent and being integral in where we are. And don't fear greenwashing, please, because it's just the misunderstood, you know, like all of us rebellious children when we're a child, you know, we're the misunderstood ones, right? So just take those steps, be transparent and be in your integrity, and go out there and make some change. That's what we're all here for.
That's such great advice, Gail. And I love that you brought in that idea of the empathy that Derek talked about as well, as part of that lens of looking at things. You know, one of the things that I've always looked for with case studies whenever I've been teaching, you know, classes on sustainability is, does the case study include what was missed? Does it include how we're going to do better next time? Those are the aspects of the case studies that I always have students focus on, because it's the learnings from real life practitioners about what we need to improve on in the future, and you know, ties into what Glenn was talking about, that need for continuous improvement. Looking at those reports and seeing that those opportunities for growth are incredibly helpful, and a great way of sharing exactly what you mentioned. You know, sharing what we know, sharing where we need to discover still. And you know, we always talk about sustainability being a journey, and it's a journey that is a lot easier when there are people who have you know, forged the path ahead and can give you some advice of how to proceed. So thank you to all of you for being here today. It has been incredible to hear all of your insights, and I so appreciate the opportunity to spend time with each of you. I do see that there's some individual questions that have come through in the Q&A. I'm going to send responses directly to you on those questions. So thank you again, everyone, for participating in today's session. And this concludes today's webinar. I'll say, if you have any questions, you can always follow up with us at sustainability@eventscouncil.org. Thank you.